I have problems with Survivor the Amazon, but I'm really scared for the hate I'm gonna get for saying that.
Do you like me at all?
Coming to you live from my apartment, it's Russell Muscle TV. And now, here's the guy who's ready to complain about Survivor the Amazon for an entire video. I'm Russell Muscle and hello everybody. Survivor was in need of a fresh start or a soft reboot after the complete failure which was now known as Survivor Thailand. And although I think there is some fun to be had with Survivor Marquesas, a majority of the community writes that season off as well, meaning the 6th season of Survivor had a lot of pressure on its shoulders, as it would look really bad for the season not to be seen as a success. I don't like thinking about a possible world without Survivor, but that could have been a very real possibility if the Amazon was a flop. See, Borneo, the Australian Outback, and Africa were major hits by the casual and hardcore community, but Marquesas and Thailand were not. And see, if the Amazon was not a hit, then Survivor would be on a 3-season streak of bad seasons, while only being 6 seasons into the franchise. Today, I'm going to make that argument that Survivor the Amazon is not as good as you remember it, and should not be rated as highly as the Survivor community gives it credit for.
39 days, 16 people, 1 survivor.
Depending on the time of day you are watching this, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening Survivor community. Welcome back to the 6th episode of Survivor Retrospective. This is a daily series where we look back at different seasons of Survivor every single day, leading up to the premiere of Survivor Season 41. Drop the 4 and leave the 1. But before we get into this one, I want all of you to quickly pause the video and take a deep breath in and out, as this video is going to piss most of you off. After fully watching the video and hearing my thoughts, let's all try to have a civil discussion in the comments. And as always, if this is the first time you've clicked on one of my videos, I have a complete playlist with all my Survivor retrospectives in the description, and I highly suggest you check them all out, as these videos are going through everything in chronological order. Anyway, that's enough of a warning. Get ready to be triggered, and let's get right into it.
9.5 in real life, and right about now she's closing in on a 6. So that kind of levels the playing field for a guy like me, which is an exciting prospect.
As I briefly mentioned at the start of this video, Survivor was in dire need of a boost in popularity and have a winning season that the fans would enjoy. I think that's actually really good on the producers for having the self-awareness to understand they needed to add something to spice up this season. But I also don't really think the producers knew what they were looking for either. When in doubt, just create more drama, and I think that's what they really went for with a younger cast, and more importantly, for the first time ever, Survivor had implemented a starting twist of separating the men and women at the start of the season. A twist that first thought to be seen in Thailand, but just ended up turning into an awkward moment with Jeff. It also needs to be mentioned of the amount of fun there is to be had with this season. Once again, the production team knew they had a big responsibility to come up with a solid season of television, and so they really focused on making this season as fun as possible. And this could be easily found with the editing team really providing the viewer with many entertaining scenes that would not normally seem so amusing if they were edited together in the conventional sense. Unless you have been living under a rock for the past 11 years, or you're simply not a Survivor fan, then you should know who Rob Cesternino is. And really thinking about it, if you aren't a Survivor fan, then why are you watching this video? Rob is one of the most important characters that ever played Survivor, and it's for 2 major reasons. Starting out here, his first season, he really was the first super fan of the show and revolutionized how the strategy would be played out. Not only did Rob change how the game was played and really sped up the strategic meta, but he was also amazing to watch. And that's where I think the best characters come from. They need to be able to play the game at the top level, but also be really good TV to watch. Rob understood the Survivor was a game, but also a television show. Many times during confessionals, he would play this up to the camera and give us some of the best quotes of all time.
Here comes tonight's long distance dedication. It goes out to Rob from New York. He writes, "Dear Casey, there's a mean old man in my life that's about to leave. Could you please play something appropriate for me? Well, Rob, here's your request. Na 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 na, na 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 na. Hey, 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 goodbye."
Arguably even more important than how he revolutionized the game of Survivor is also founding Rob Has a Podcast. RHAP is a Survivor institution and is the powerhouse backbone of the online Survivor community. I could easily make a complete separate video and probably a full video series on the things RHAP has been able to accomplish. The issue is, this video isn't about RHAP. This video is about Survivor the Amazon. Have you noticed how we barely mentioned anything about the Amazon yet in this video? Well, I think that's because in order to fully understand the popularity of this season, we need to understand how it was able to achieve that level of popularity. Hell, the listeners of Rob As a Podcast rated this season the 8th best season of all time. I'm sorry, what? RHAP has become so popular, I think the listeners of the show have overinflated just how strong the season really was. My personal opinion is that if RHAP as a podcast doesn't exist, then this season of Survivor doesn't get as much love as it always does. In fact, I think the entire community will view this season in a different light. In my personal ranking, I obviously rank this season much lower than probably 99% of you watching this video. It's certainly not awful, and it's a decent season of television, but I just don't think it deserves all the love and praise the community is constantly giving it. Unlike other decent seasons, however, many fans simply neglect and try not to point out the flaws of this season. Yeah, RHAP was a game changer, and yeah, the strategy and overall fun that was brought to the season was refreshing. Yeah, the location of the Amazon is beautiful, but the unsatisfying winner, along with the sexist attitude of the season, makes it really hard to watch and rate this season anything higher than just average.
The winner of Survivor Amazon.
For the first time in Survivor history, the tribes are going to be divided based on a certain twist. And obviously the twist this season being men versus women. A majority of this season relies on having a good time with fun and humorous moments found throughout the entire season. However, a lot of the funny moments come from a very base level of sexist comedy regarding the women not being in the kitchen. Well, I'll just roll the clip.
We are the most macho guys that have ever been at Survivor, you know. Good looking macho. We're confident we're gonna get through the first challenge. There's no doubt about that. If we lose to these women, man, we are gonna get ragged on big time.
All of this has aged really bad since 2003, making it a hard season to rank, as it's a season that was viewed way differently once upon a time. I also suspect that many of the things that were being said by the players were egged on, as I'm guessing production was heavily encouraging the division to exist to really dive into that storyline. But this actually plays into a pretty well-developed underdog storyline. See, the men are underestimating the women all season long, and so it becomes fairly easy for the viewer to cheer on the women's tribe and attempt to prove the men wrong. Unfortunately, I don't think this plays off as well in the end as the producers were really hoping for, as the woman who ends up on top and saving the day ends up feeling spoiled and whiny for the majority of the season and even threatens to quit the game at one point. That's actually a perfect segue to talk about the winner of the season, Jenna Maraska. At the end of the day, I can't really sugarcoat this one. Jenna is an unsatisfying winner of Survivor and possibly the worst winner we had in the classic era of the show. Jenna was negative for most of the time she was playing Survivor, and normally, fine. I guess you need some negative players out there, but for a season that prides itself in being a fun journey, it really hurts to have the winner feel unearned, spoiled, and whiny in the end. From a storytelling perspective, having a solid finale is so important on a viewer's perspective, and if not done well, it'll hurt the entire product, as it's the last thing the viewer will remember. The conclusion or end to the story is the most important part, and this is just not a fulfilling finale in my opinion. Although Jenna doesn't really add any personality to the season, there are a few redeeming qualities people do use in her defense. Firstly, she ends up winning 3 immunity challenges, proving to be a physical threat, ends up taking the easier person to beat at the end, showing that she does have some strategy to her gameplay. And of course, with one of the most iconic moments of the first era of the show, Jenna and Heidi take their clothes off for some good old peanut butter.
Chocolate cookies.
Heidi, you want to do it? Yeah. All right.
Oh God, why me?
All in all, Jenna is just meh, and this season performs much better if Rob ends up becoming the sole survivor in the end.
Rob, the tribe has spoken.
This is a pretty top-heavy cast with a few standout characters and the rest of them being kinda duds. And at the very top of this top-heavy cast we have Rob Sesternino, who was the best part of the season and was a true game changer. This season could have been a boring watch through once the merge hits if it wasn't for Rob and his flipping strategy. Once the merge hits, the men and women were tied at a 5-5 deadlock, and it could have turned into a really boring pagonging. But that's not what happened here. After the swap, the old tribal lines of men and women were blurred, and the game entered a new level of complexity. Rob controlled the entire game at this point and was able to manipulate the votes to whatever he deemed best. To make it even better, Rob wasn't making random decisions or basing these votes at a dislike, as most of the people Rob was voting out was who he saw as a threat. But what separates Rob from the rest of the field is he also knew how to play things up to the camera and create interesting moments. It's literally no surprise that RHAP is so successful, as Rob really is a talker at heart and knows how to communicate his thoughts to perfection. Oh, and he also brought a magic 8-ball as his luxury item.
Chance that Heidi will notice me at the community challenge. Yes, definitely.
Honestly, with all things on the table, I still think this is a season of Survivor that you need to watch. Jeff is narrating the challenges, making it easier to rewatch on the first couple of seasons, and this is where the show really takes a shift from surviving being primary to strategy being primary. And after everything is said and done, I am a little worried that I was too tough on this season, as it really is fun with a game-changing strategy. However, I still have many issues with this season as a whole that just can't be left alone. The winner is so meh, and I really think Jenna's win leaves a sour taste in the mouth that could have been avoided if someone else came up on top. More importantly, the men versus women dynamic just creates too many moments that don't age well in 2021. And from a macro sense, I feel like I need to balance things out with the high rating the community gives this season because of RHAP. Just think of me like Thanos, and I'm bringing balance to the Survivor universe.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
I look forward to being more positive tomorrow as we talk about the Pearl Islands. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss this daily grind, and comment down below what your thoughts on the season are. And if your name is Rob Sesternino, hey, what's up? We should collab sometime. My final rating for Survivor the Amazon is a 6.8 out of 10. C tier.